before I start that, grades are pretty much done. So I went through, graded the exit tickets, put them in, graded the retakes, put them in. Unless you are a person that I have already had a conversation with because there was some unusual circumstances around your grade, they're done. So for some of you, you could possibly, if you're gonna be in here, girl, I need you not be on your phone. You need to go take care of something. You can go out and take care of it. If you were like 1 point away from something, I'm not giving you a point. Most likely, and I think this is the case, the only people that were 1 point away, they had a quiz at some point that was either missing or a 0, and they didn't ever come in to redo it. So I moved that to 40%. It's already gave you way more points than you have. So that means I'm not giving you then another point on top of that. The only reason you're as close as it looks is because I gave you extra points that you didn't have it. And I normally write that into the notes somewhere and say, missed a quiz, did not take, or got a 0 on original, did not retake, or something. Something should be somewhere in your notes that tells you that if you're confused as why you're not getting 1 point. Again, some of you just started off slow. You expected this to be easier than it is. Hopefully now, and some of you tried to kick it in and it was too late. Some of you never really tried to kick it in. I'll say it again. It's not that tough a class to pass. It's not that tough to get a C. We just have a different definition of what is difficult and what is tough. To me, difficult means it's hard material. Like the material is too hard. That's difficult. Like calculus is hard to pass. That is difficult. There's enough easy math that if you put the effort in, and effort is not hard. That doesn't make something hard because you got to work at it. There's a difference. Your math ability is high enough for all of you to make C's. Now your work ethic is another story. And a lot of you don't have any work ethic. We've trained you to not have one. We've trained you to coast in all your classes. We've allowed you, I say we, the schools in general, not in school. We've allowed you to do what you've done all quarter long in this class. And some of you even got away with a little bit and you still pulled out a passing grade in this class. Even to some extent, you're still doing that. But I'm telling you right now, it's gonna get harder. That was not the hard quarter. That was the easiest quarter you'll have in this class. I mean, arguably the fourth quarter is not bad because the whole last month is testing for EOC, so we don't have a lot of material, but the material gets more difficult every quarter. So start off well, and I'm going to tell you how you can do that in a second. And then retakes are the key. Like there's nobody that does well in this class that doesn't do retakes. My best math students don't get A's if they don't take some retakes. Retakes are a part of the process if you want to do well in this class. A lot of you are not doing. What was I going to say? Something else. Or less. Oh yeah. So it's the same test. Like I don't get it. You see the test. You take the test, the quiz. Go home, take your book if you need to. Questions come straight from the book. Like very rarely is there anything except for maybe an explain kind of question, but most of the problems or the quiz questions that are problems come straight from the book. Go home and mark them in your book. Then when you see what you got, go back to the book, do those problems that you marked, which are exactly like what was on the quiz, and then come in and take the same quiz. Now, I might change it the second week of retakes. Every once in a while, I'll do that. But that first week, it's the same problems. So if you put some time and actually learn how to do those, it wouldn't be that bad a class. But you got to do the retakes. Let's see. Anything else? Any other questions about grades? You have a quiz this Friday. On Friday, I've never done this before. We'll see how it works. If I feel like you guys do a good job of it, I'm fine with it. I might do it again. Every single question is going to be straight from IXL. I'm going to go through, do them myself, do all of them, but I can skip levels. And I'm just going to pick one, and it will be word for word the same question on the quiz front. If it's a multiple choice question in IXL, it'll be a multiple choice question on the quiz. Now, there's probably going to be more questions now if I'm going to do multiple choice. Kind of like on the truth value, I give you 5, and that way you can't just guess 1 or 2 correct and get a good grade. But yeah, if you do the IXLs, you should be good. We're going to do a few IXLs today, but you will need to do more on your own because we won't do some of the ones that are a little bit more difficult. Those are 3 of the codes right there. So we've already done the JUU one. We'll do the N5P a little bit today, but we don't get into the difficult ones really. So it's up to you. Again, not let's say it. Your math ability does not have to be high, but you have to put the effort in. If you do enough of those, you'll eventually get to the point where you understand what's going on. If you don't, you stop at 20, a score of 20 or 30, then yeah, you're probably not going to do well in the quiz. Or if you never even do them. I got a lot of people that have never even touched IXL this year. It shows me a report of all those people that haven't done anything. And it's a lot. All right, so with that in mind, I told you this topic, transformations, is all over the midterm. It's quite a bit of the final too, the EOC, but it's probably half of the midterm. You get really, really good at this. For some of you that are going to need that midterm to bump your grade up, you should be in pretty good shape, considering the rest of the questions are just 4 choice, multiple choice. So we did this one before. We did the over the y-axis last week. So we're just kind of reviewing that one real quick. What is the important thing that I said you have to make sure you do when you're doing reflections? Anybody remember? What's the important part? What line? That's the important part. The line itself is called what? A couple different. Line of reflection. The line of reflection is the important part. I need you to have something up on notes. Actually, you all really need your book unless you have a notebook, because on page 136, you're going to probably want to take notes in there so you don't have to write as much. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot more to write if you don't have your book in front of you. I mean, it might be in your notes too if you write everything in your notes. We did it before. So in this case, if my line of reflection is the y-axis, I'm going to make sure I make that y-axis really dark. And there's a reason why we do it, and we'll get to that today. So that's my line of reflection. So now that we know we're only working on this one. So once you've drawn the line of reflection, no matter how complex the reflection gets, if you do the correct line of reflection, you should be good from there. Now I just go straight toward that line of reflection. Perpendicular is the technical direction. Most of the time, that just means you're just following the grid lines. That is 4 squares or 4 hops or 4 spaces, whatever you want to call it. Do not start at 1 there and then go 2. The first time you put your pencil down, it's 0. Then it's 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I go to the other side. And we said that's how you create a reflection. I also told you, though, there's a really good chance that there's going to be a lot more stuff about rules than there's going to be just create the reflection. So we said, actually, let's start calling people. Melinda, I'm just going to go around the room. You can tell me the tougher version or the easier version. What happens when we do that reflection over the y? Describe what we did. And there's a lot of correct answers. I'm giving you wide open questions, so there's a lot of correct answers. There's one really simple one, and then there's one that's the workbook answers. What happens when we do a reflection over the y-axis, which is what we did. We reflected over y. So it mirrors it, but like what did we do to move the point? Like There's a rule that I'm eventually going to get to, or you can just tell me which direction we go. We went straight right, correct? If I would have started on the right side, we'd go straight left. Did I move up or down? Did the point go up or down? It did not, right? So we said the rule would be if we go over the y-axis, and again, your original point that they give you will always be x and y. There's never going to be a negative in the original. Well, I shouldn't say never, but I don't think you're ever going to see a negative, even though this is a -4. X is the original x. You just have to know that's actually a negative number in this case. They're not going to make that negative because the first number was negative. We did not change y at all. We didn't go up or down. If you don't go up or down when you move the point, the y doesn't change. The only thing that changed is the x. We went from -4 on this side to +4 on that side. And the way you show that you changed the sign is by putting that negative in front of it. A negative symbol in front of a variable doesn't mean it's a negative number. It means it flips the sign. Got to make sure you get that down. A lot of kids will go the whole year after pre-algebra, algebra, everything, and they think, oh, well, then that's a negative number. Well, no, it depends on what the original number was. In our case, it's actually a positive number. It's +4. So just know, this means we flipped the sign. Right? Oh, any questions on that? So with this problem where we're reflecting it over the x-axis, I'm not going to scroll a bit, we're reflecting over x. Delaney, what do I need to do? What's the first step to doing a reflection? Well, let's do the baby step. Let's do each step. What's the first thing I do for a reflection? I need to draw in the what? Like the thing I darken in. Yeah, so in this case, I darken in the line of reflection here is the x-axis. I darken in the x-axis. That is my line of reflection. It'll always tell you what the line of reflection is. You'll never have to like figure that out. Well, if it was a really, really hard question, I guess they could give you both points and you have to figure out what they did. So now that I do that, now I do the easy part. I just count straight down. 1 hop, 2 hops, 3 hops, 1 hop, 2 hops, 3 hops. That's my point. -4, -3. On to Brandon. So what happened? What'd I do? So I just went straight down. I could have started down here and gone straight up, but if you're if you're reflecting over the x-axis, you're not going left or right. You're always going straight up and down. Doesn't matter where I start, I'll always go straight down and keep going, or straight up and keep going. So if I'm only going up and down and not left and right, now the x value doesn't change. So if my original point that if they don't give me a graph and actual numbers, and they just say, what would happen, what's the rule? Or if they might give you the rule and ask you what type of transformation it is. X doesn't change in this, but my y value flipped. I went from positive to negative. If I would have started at negative, it would have flipped to positive. So that's the one that I flip when I reflect over the x. So if they only give you letters and no graph, you can create a graph and pick any point on the graph and then reflect it over x and see what changes. Like you can do that. Like if they didn't give me anything and they just said, if I reflect a point over the x-axis, what's the rule? Well, then put a point on a graph and reflect it over the x-axis and see what happens. A rule is a rule. It'll be the same no matter what point you start with. It'll always follow that same process. It'll follow the same rules. Any questions then on that? So this is the kind of stuff that you're going to see on the midterm. You might be asked to actually create it. Oh, and eventually it's going to be a shape that we reflect. Like it might be a triangle, and we're going to reflect the triangle over something. You just would do through all 3 points individually and then connect them with lines. you're never going to move a whole shape. You're doing it point by point, which is why we're just dealing with one point right now. No questions? So those are the two easy ones. Then it starts to get a little trickier. So here's the next level. I want you to see, I mean, I don't know that anybody's going to know how to do it, but I'll let you try it if you want. So reflect over, it could say across, just don't freak out if it says across instead of over. Yeah, let's do this. You got a tougher version than the other classes since I'm recording. So you've done this kind of stuff before. Some of this is algebra. You didn't actually, I don't know if you did a reflection or not. I don't think you did. But you did graph a line. So you need to know, what does the line of reflection look like if it's at x equals 1? That's the tricky part of this. I'll let you, if any of you think you can do it, I'll give you a minute. You're just graphing that equation. If you were to graph x equals 1, what would that look like if you remember that from algebra or pre-algebra or whatever you did? Or both. Joseph is next. Keep thinking about it. Raise your hand if you think you know how to graph x equals 1. Like if you're like, yeah, I remember how to do that. There was only one in first period. Wait, was that? Actually, I don't think I asked. I don't know. Only one person so far today. I might not have asked him. So, Joseph, what do you think? What would the line look like? Where would it be? What would it look like if I'm creating or I'm graphing x equals 1? Well, first I want to do the line of reflection. Not worry about moving the point. That's the key. The key is putting the line in the correct spot. From there, it's pretty easy on almost everything we do with reflection. So where would the line of reflection be? What would it look like? Describe where I would put it. And where that way. Need one more piece. Sort of. It's x equals what? So the number 1 is going to be involved somehow, right? Like at the very least, get that done. Well, if I'm reflecting over x equals 1, somehow I got to use a 1. Problem is I got 2 1s. So you just need to figure out which one do I draw the line through. Do I draw it through this one or do I draw it through that one? And a lot of you are going to think, well, the x-axis is here, right? That's the x-axis. So if it's x equals 1, I should draw it there. That's my line of reflection. But here's the problem. X has to equal 1 everywhere on that line. X does not equal 1 everywhere on that line. Not even close. It actually only equals 1 right there. That's where x is 1, right? Because here's x equals 1 right there. X is a different number everywhere else on that line. It is not a horizontal line. That's going to be your intuition. That's going to be like, what makes sense is that that will also be horizontal. That is wrong. So when x equals a number or y equals a number, you got to think about it a little bit, or you got to remember it's the opposite of what you think. X, yeah, I can do this. X equals 1 is actually vertical. Because no matter where I'm at on that line, if I were to write an ordered pair, x will always be 1. Here, x is 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3. Doesn't matter where I'm at. So again, x equals a number is vertical. So what would y equals a number have to be? Like we're going to do y equals the number over there. How would that line go?
Horizontal.
Yeah, that would be the horizontal line. Y equals a number is a flat horizontal line. X equals a number is a vertical line. So now what, and again, darken it in because a lot of kids will stop right there because they're so used to stopping at an x-axis or a y-axis. We keep going though to the line of reflection. So I go 3 to the right and then 3 more to the right. So that would be the point. So again, I think Joseph, you had said go 2 to the right. Well, no, this is our line of reflection. It's x equals 1, not the x or not the y-axis, not the x-axis. So really quickly, try to do, whoopsies. Oh, there we go. So try to reflect over y equals 1 here. Reflect over y equals 1 on that. The point, the original point is at 3, -2, if you can't see it. You can draw your own graph real quick. Like I said, graphs don't have to be perfect on this. Got to get going. So again, y equals a number would look like what kind of line? Flat, horizontal. You got to memorize it, memorize it. Flat, horizontal line if y equals a number. And the reason is because everywhere on this line, y is 1. Like you pick a spot anywhere on that red line, y is 1. The x changes because I'm going left and right, but the y is always 1. That's why it looks like that. It also has a slope of 0 if you remember doing the slope and stuff. Now I just count 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So my ordered pair is 3, 4. There's no rule for these. I mean, I guess you could sort of make a rule. We're not going to worry about that. And there is one that exists, but we're not going to worry about trying to make a rule for when the x is the number, the y is the number. We're just going to do that for the y-axis, the x-axis, and then there's another one we'll get to that's probably the trickiest one, but there is a rule for the other one. So just know how to do this. All right. So now in your books, any questions on that? In your books, turn to 136. We're going to do a quick review and then some IXL, which is the N5P. It'll be on your quiz. Oh, it's still in here. So we did this a while back. I'm going to give you the shorter version so we can just get to the IXLs. I told you there were these 3 concepts you needed to learn. When you have statements, we can create from those statements, we can create converse, inverse, contrapositive. We said that if the original statement is written like this, if P, so if some statement happens, then some other statement happens, this is the symbols. So statement P leads to, that's kind of what that arrow means. Statement P leads to statement Q. Then, though, we said there are these other things we can create from the original, and we're just changing the original. We're going to take, sometimes we're going to take the 2 statements and switch the order. Sometimes we're not going to switch the order, but we're going to negate both statements. We're going to make like opposite statements for both of them. Sometimes we're going to do both, which is the weirdest situation. However, you got to memorize it. You just got to memorize it. And then the IXLs are not super, super difficult if you make sure you memorize the 3 things. Converse, you just switch the order, we said. So, and it's called hypothesis and conclusion. The hypothesis is the first statement. The conclusion is the second statement, the then statement or the Q. So we're just switching whatever is at the end moves to the beginning. Whatever's at the beginning moves to the end. That's a converse. For inverse, and this actually came from Aiden. Everybody, I didn't give him your name. But some student actually created this or told me this. the root of in, like you put that in front of other words, means not. Inactive would mean not active. Incomplete would mean not complete. Incorrect would mean not correct. So for inverse, hopefully that's enough to help you remember. I just need to put the word not in there or take the word not out. I need to create the negation, basically. I don't change the order. The first statement is still the first statement. The second statement is still the second statement, but I'm doing the negation of both statements. And then the last one, which is the weirdest word, right? Contrapositive is probably not a word you've ever seen before in your life. So that's the weird one. That means we do both things. We're going to flip the order and we're going to negate both statements for that. So that's what that symbol, those symbols mean. Flipping order and negating. So I just circled in the symbols what you're doing. So again, this is on page 136 if you have your book. I'm going to go ahead and keep going. Oh, so now I'll show you how the IXLs are going to look. We won't get to all of the levels of difficulty. So just know that there is a higher level of difficulty. All right, so here's the level one difficulty. Shouldn't be super, super difficult. Oh, let me zoom in farther. Probably going to talk to us in a second. So they give you the statement. They tell you to do that, and you just have to choose. You don't have to create it from scratch. You just got to choose the correct one. And normally you don't have to work very hard to choose the correct one. So this first level should not be difficult for anybody at all. If you memorize correctly what converse, inverse, and contrapositive. Where'd I end off? Joseph Damon. What's inverse mean? Huh? So what did we say the in? This part you got to memorize. In means what? Incomplete, inactive, incorrect. In means what in all that? That's exactly what it means. So that means if it's the inverse, we're just putting the word not in or taking the word not out of both statements. So here, I don't have the word not, so I'd be putting the word not in. Here I do have the word not, so I'd be taking it out. That's what inverse is. Put the word not in there. If it's not in there, take it out if it is. So now I just look for that answer down below. The first part, no, doesn't change order. So the first part should be Darnell is not wearing sneakers. Well, it can't be this one because that doesn't say that. Well, could be that one. Well, can't be that one. So I don't even really need to go any farther. But just to make sure, it should say if Darnell is not wearing sneakers, then it is raining. If Darnell is not wearing sneakers, then it is raining. That's it for the level one difficulty.
What can be both opposite for the competitive and conclusion?
Well, because in the inverse, we don't change the order. All we do is we negate both statements. So we're going to negate this and negate this. That's just the definition of inverse. That's why you guys have to remember it. You memorize them correctly. Most of these, not all of these, because there are some that get a little trickier, which I'll just show them to you. We won't do a lot of them, but you'll have to do those on your own. All right, so here's another one. We'll do one more easy one, then we'll go to the next level. Converse. What converse means? Actually, I'd like to do one of each, so maybe we'll try to get to. Yeah, we'll be able to get to all three. Another minute. Hey, you already answered some. Marlon, you want to take a shot at it, Marlon? You know what we're doing? Veronica, how about you? You don't get the answer on that. Emiliano, I'm making you take a shot at it. What's converse mean? Yeah, converse, we just flip the order. We don't negate anything. We're just going to take the green. That's why I underlined. The green will be come to the front. The red will move to the back. We don't change them in any other way. So in the front, I should be looking for, what's her name? Nicole is not bringing her favorite thesaurus. Well, this one's not about a thesaurus here. That one is, so that could be that. This one's about a thesaurus, but why is it not the third one? Yeah, we should not be changing this. In a converse, we don't negate it. We don't take the word not out, which is what they did. They took the word not out. So it can't be that one. So that in mind. And just to make sure, I'll read the whole thing. So Nicole is not bringing her favorite thesaurus. Then this should be at the back. So she is not going to the library. So it matches up. All right. So hopefully we get there we go. That's what I wanted to do before we leveled up. Now you get the third one, contrapositive. So do that one. And then we'll level up. Hope none of you ever fall for any of those email scams and text scams. Afraid you guys are going. Somebody, I don't. We end up. Ooh, do I go straight over or do I come back to the front? Probably come back to the front. That's what I've been doing, I guess. So you can be thinking about it, Eli, what you think. I'm going to ask you first just what contrapositive means. And then Christina is going to tell me the next. All right, so what do we do for contrapositive? We're going to negate both of them. Is that it? Because inverse, we negated both of them also. Contrapositive is a little bit more than that. So what else could we, I mean, what's the only other thing we do? We negate them and we can do what? What's the only other thing we do? Like, what do we do for a converse? Yeah, we change the order. So for contrapositive, again, that's the weird word. Just remember that really weird word. We do both things. We negate both of them and we change the order. So the part about reading the newspaper will move to the front. The part about the dog eating the style. I didn't even know there was a style section. You guys know what a newspaper is? You ever seen an actual newspaper? Yeah. A whole newspaper? Yeah. Raise your hand if you've never seen a whole newspaper. And not just a little tiny, like it's got like 7 or 8 sections, like no. I would be shocked if you'd all seen a whole newspaper. I don't see whole newspapers anymore. I do need to also negate. So I need to think, okay, well, I'm going to get rid of that. If Haley's dog, so how would I negate the first one? Christina, I meant to make you do this anyway. How do you negate if Haley's dog ate the style section? Well, it says, what's the word we need to do for negation? Negation involves what word? Not. So if it's in there, we took it out, we take it out, which I did for you. So what would I do there? Is it in there? So what do we do? So if Haley's dog did not eat or had not eaten or something like that, like I'm not worried about the English part of it. So that though needs to be first. And the word not should not be in there, not be in there. So here's one where that works. Reading is first and the word not is gone. Now reading is first down here, but they still have that. So that one doesn't work. Again, this one doesn't have it first, so it can't be that. Just to make sure though, let me make sure it reads. So if Haley is reading the newspaper, then her dog did not, because we got to add not in, then her dog did not eat the style section. Actually, oh, I didn't choose one. I do that all the time. All right, we're going to go to the next level. Actually, tell you what, I'm going to show you both of the next two levels, and then we'll come back to the one. I'm not going to do any with the highest level. You got to do these on your own. So I think we did. I think we maybe did one or two of these in class when we did truth value, but we didn't do anything with converse or inverse or anything. We did that. We just did truth value. If I'm trying to find out like what the negation is for those, that's the tricky part when there's a negation. If you just switch the order, it's not bad. Like for a converse, that's going to be easy. You just switch the order. The negation is the hard part for these. You could think about it in words, and that might help. I'm sure there's a shortcut for this. I'll try to come up with it. If something is less than or equal to 3, what's the negation? Well, it wouldn't be greater, so it would have to not be less than or equal to, right? But we put the word not in. So what's the only way it cannot be less than or equal to? Greater. It can only be greater. So the negation of that, and again, this is not part of this problem. You don't negate this one, but I'm just saying the negation of, they don't give you that statement, is V is greater than 3. So those were a little tricky. Think about it in words first. Though. Think about it in words first. You negate the words, then change it back into symbols. Sometimes that's helpful. For this one, though, all you would be doing is just flipping the order. You would just move this one here, that one there. And then back to the second level that we kind of skipped, which I don't think is too bad. It's multiple choice, but they give you the two statements. And you have to tell what they did to the two statements. So try to do this one real quick. We'll probably do a couple of these. Yeah. So they give you the original statement and then how they changed it. And you just have to tell them what they did. I'll give you a minute. The order is the same. So that's the first thing you should notice. So if the order is the same, actually, there's only one of them that the order is the same. What's the only one where the order stays the same? Inverse. Inverse, yeah. If the order stays the same, it's got to be inverse. Contrapositive, you flip them. Converse, you flip them. So that's an easy. If you want to make that note, that's probably a pretty good idea. If the order doesn't change, it's got to be an inverse. It's the only one where the order doesn't change. So on these kind of questions, that's a little bit of a shortcut. If the order changes, then you got to know how to do it. So got to be inverse. I'll give you one more. You can pack up, but you can try to do this while you're packing up. Here's another one. Try to do that one. So the order does change here, so it's not inverse. So it's either converse or contrapositive. So try to figure it out. What do you think this one is? Oh, somebody said converse. Yeah, contrapositive is what I think. I didn't even read it. Yeah, they're putting the word not in, so that would be contrapositive, not con. It does change order, but they also put the word not in. So yeah, they put the word not in, and it wasn't in there. Oh yeah, they do both. They flip the order and they negate. So make sure you practice those harder ones on level 3. Like you got to get all the way up to like 80 or 90 to get to those. And those are going to be the ones that are going to be the tricky ones, not these first two levels. Those are your 3 IXLs. I'm going to say this mainly for the recording. JUU, N5P and Q6E are the three so far. There'll be at least two more added to that, which I'll put up in the room probably Tuesday.